Hey guys, what's up? Excoundrel here, and today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be looking at the lawsuit between PUBG and Rules of Survival, news that broke just over the last few days. I want to talk about it in greater detail in this video. So, this is an important video to talk about. This news broke about 2 to 3 days ago, but realistically this has been going on since early January. In early January, PUBG made moves towards Netease communication-wise to say that they felt that Rules of Survival and Knives Out were infringing upon copyright issues with PUBG as a brand and as a game itself. So what happened is a result of Netease basically saying, don't think that we're copyrighting anything. It's difficult to say that we're copyrighting anything. This genre has been around before PUBG and PUBG Mobile, so, you know, I don't really know what we can do here. And it's kind of devolved into a point where PUBG Mobile are now filing a lawsuit, which we will look through in a second, and you can find this on any news website about this particular issue. There is lawsuit links, and you can see the full document. I will link it in the description below, and you can read through the document at your leisure. But I want to highlight a couple of things before we start to go through the document together. This happened recently with Riot Games, the owner of League of Legends, and Mobile Legends Bang Bang, which is a mobile MOBA of which is heavily themed around League of Legends. Riot Games sued Mobile Legends in the US specifically to essentially sort of get rid of that from the market because they felt like it was copywriting onto League of Legends. But it also had the added-on effect of Tencent then releasing AOV onto the US market, in which Tencent own Riot Games, and Riot Games probably aren't going to take the same steps against their parent company. So it meant that a game that was like League of Legends was able to make its way onto the US app market that wasn't Mobile Legends, which is obviously hugely successful in Southeast Asia. The differences that I see between that lawsuit and the lawsuit that we see here between PUBG and Netease is that the stuff in League of Legends is fantasy. The stuff in League of Legends is a mind creation, if you think about it. The IP of League of Legends hasn't really come from real-world inspiration. The IP of League of Legends is a completely made-up universe with a magical map that has 3 lanes and certain, you know, champions, and it works in a certain way. So to say that Mobile Legends was infringing on copyright of League of Legends is completely true, because it was, in a way. It was just copying the League of Legends format onto a mobile device. And I think Riot Games had the ground to say that that was not fair, and they didn't want that to happen. The difference that I see with PUBG and Netease with Rules of Survival and PUBG is that whilst the creator of PUBG, PlayerUnknown, could be considered the grandfather of the Battle Royale genre, or the father of the Battle Royale genre, whichever way you want to put it, it's all based on real-life stuff. The guns, backpacks, planes, airdrops, parachutes, a real-world map. It's based on real-life stuff. The biggest thing that you can take away that fantasy is the gas closing in on a specific area in that kind of Battle Royale genre. But if you think about it, it's very similar to the concept of the Battle Royale movie, which, if any of you have seen it, I think it was in sort of late 80s, 90s. It was a Japanese movie where they had Japanese kids on an island and they were forced to fight out to the death. One of them happened to have a frying pan, which was, you know, a symbol back in that movie. You could link it back to the Hunger Games, which is practically exactly the same thing, where they forced the Hunger Games competitors into a close quarters area so that one of them eventually had to win, and they couldn't just camp out in the middle of nowhere. This is not a concept that is unique to the Battle Royale genre in a game mode. This is a concept that has been around pre-Battle Royale genre on games, and I think this is a core concept that I think means that this lawsuit might not go the same way as the Riot Games lawsuit. Is that this is not stuff created completely out of thin air. This stuff has inspiration from somewhere. And whilst I think that Rules of Survival definitely carbon copied PUBG, I mean, there isn't really any way of saying it. I mean, Netease created Fortcraft or whatever it is, which is essentially Fortnite, you know. So they definitely carbon copied PUBG. They took that formula of PUBG, they altered it slightly, and they made it work for them with a new map and whatever. They altered the artwork of some things. They had the same array of weapons, for instance. The medical kits, the armor, they all work in the same tier. They all have the same damage reduction. You know, it works in a similar vein. The issue is that, can you prove definitively in court that Rules of Survival didn't just say, we like Hunger Games, or we like that Battle Royale game from the film from the 80s, and therefore, you know, that's where we draw our inspiration from? it's very difficult to prove that, I think, in a court of law, that this wasn't just a game inspired in a similar vein to the way that the Battle Royale genre was inspired in the first place. So let's have a look at the... let's have a look at this specifically. It's got all these details about what they are suing for. A lot of this is just about kind of what PUBG is. So the first section you'll read through is like, what are the unique things that PUBG brings to the table as a game? It explains the game for people who aren't familiar with the Battle Royale genre, including the items, the weaponry, all that kind of stuff, the cosmetics, the backpacks, blah, 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 blah. The frying pan, which a lot of people have talked about is a unique symbol of PUBG. I mean, PUBG are almost using a meme here to say that the frying pan is ours. Although, like I said, the frying pan you can find all the way back to the 80s Battle Royale, where I believe one of the kids actually kills someone with a frying pan. So it's not something that is completely new, and it was definitely had inspiration of its own. The important bit is this document, it covers both Rules of Survival and Knives Out, by the way. The important bit is when we get down to the comparisons between them. They start to compare specifically the maps, the way the maps look. They compare a lot of in-game footage, so the preloading screen, the plane, the parachute, the drop. They try to make these look as similar as possible in any way vein that they can. But I think if you were to approach this from a strictly proving point of view, H1Z1 had preloading screens. The Arma 3 mod Battle Royale had preloading screens. Parachute, well, people get parachuted in Hunger Games in planes, and parachutes can't be copyrighted. Crates, whilst they do look very similar, it's difficult to say that a crate can be copyrighted in fields. You know, maybe scenery. I mean, these exist in real life too, so this is inspiration that could have been drawn from elsewhere that isn't PUBG. When you prove something like this, you have to prove exactly that they copied your game with no shadow of a doubt that inspiration could have come from elsewhere. And I think that's why the Mobile Legends Riot Games lawsuit went the other way, because there wasn't really anything else like League of Legends. The color schemes, the way that it was set out, a lot of the champion kind of inspiration, it was quite striking where that sort of inspiration came from, and that kind of Summoner's Rift that was almost blanket copied onto the Mobile Legends game is obviously, you know, came from a direct inspiration from League of Legends. It's a little bit more difficult to do this, and I'll talk about it as we go through. We'll keep going. These are just comparing the buildings. Let's just skip down to the... Oh, goodness me. Here we go. This is what I wanted. So we're going to get to the bits where we're comparing weapons. So we get to the first part, they compare weapons. Fair enough. I think the key point to take away from this is that Rules of Survival did take almost exactly the same array of weapons from PUBG into their game. But you can't copyright weapons. These weapons exist in the real life. Tommy gun is a real gun. The M4 is a real gun. AWM, a real sniper. Red dot sights are real sights. But what I do think they are getting at here is that it is very strikingly obvious that they copied the same array of things. Now, I think things like compensators and crowbars and whatever, like these are attachments that any gun game would usually have on a gun, so therefore, what can you say about that? But maybe in taking it in the total picture, you could say this is almost exactly copying. The helmets here, motorcycle helmet, army helmet, some weird level 3 helmet with all exactly the same percentage damage reduction. Same with this. I think the armor looks different enough, but same percentage damage reduction, for instance. But what I think is PUBG are trying to get at here is in the entirety, they feel like the Rules of Survival and Knives Out have taken their formula for what works, not the actual items themselves, but the formula for what works. But again, if you look at this from Rules of Survival, I don't think anyone that plays Rules of Survival is in any shadow of a doubt that the inspiration came directly from PUBG. But if you had to prove this in a court of law, how, despite, you know, they could just say, well, we thought these were the best fit for our game. You know, these are real life things that we thought fit well into our game. It's difficult to prove in a court of law that this was directly taken from PUBG. I mean, ghillie suits are real things, you know? And we go further down, and it talks about configuration, and it talks about medical kits, and again, this is basically Red Bull, right? This is a rip-off of Red Bull. They're trying to say that whilst I don't think you can copyright this specific, you know, you can't copyright a can of energy drink in a game, but what they're saying is the use of the can of energy drink is the same way as the use of can of energy drink in PUBG. Same with the cardiotonics, same with, I guess, the fuel in a way, and then they go on to look at the vehicles as well. They go on to look at crate drops, they look at the map and the circle. This is the one thing that maybe maybe holds weight in my opinion in terms of inspiration. The way that the map looks in terms of the circle, the white circle dictating an area of the map with a blue circle moving in with the green gas or whatever. That is the only thing in my opinion that maybe could be seen as kind of a massive draw of inspiration from the PUBG specific game. Because that is something that is made up, right? This is a made up concept of gas closing in onto a specific area. This is not something that is drawn from real life. This doesn't happen in real life. That is a made up concept that comes with the game. But again, H1Z1 did the same thing. And there are a lot of examples in the past of games doing a similar thing. This winner winner chicken dinner, you know, I think yes, for sure. That is okay. Winner winner chicken dinner is not a phrase that PUBG invented. Winner winner chicken dinner is a very old, I think, British saying specifically of, you know, winning something, you know, I've won it, winner winner chicken dinner. This was not something created by PUBG, but because PlayerUnknown is British, I think he probably incorporated that. What he's saying is the use of that phrase in PUBG has been sort of taken by Rules of Survival and used it, you know, in the same way. So yeah, I think it's difficult. And then they go on to talk about sort of the way that the advertising works, and it's similar across all Battle Royale genres, but I think this is something that's a little bit beyond my head. It's very, very difficult to say. They're also talking about specific event-related things. I think if we're going to sum this up, and you guys can... 1 second, let me get this. You guys can make up your own mind about this. This feels like more of a play to try and claim some aspect of the market on the App Store. And I don't blame them. They do have that core Battle Royale experience. The PUBG experience is supposed to be that core Battle Royale experience. It was very, very popular when it came to PC. It was created by, like we said, the father or the grandfather of the Battle Royale genre in a way. I think the problem that you'll have specifically with this is that it's very difficult to prove that it was all taken from PUBG, other than being inspired by past Battle Royale pop culture references like Hunger Games or the Battle Royale movie, and the guns specifically inspired from real life arsenals. It is very difficult to prove that that was a direct pull from PUBG. Even if the arsenals are the same, there is probably a reasonable doubt to suggest that the Netease and the Rules of Survival publishers could have just said, actually, we took this from somewhere else, because these are real life things and not created by PUBG. The problem is that a lot of the IP of PUBG, like the guns and the backpacks, a lot of that IP doesn't belong to PUBG itself. Those are worldly IPs, you know, things that are beyond the gaming industry. So unless you completely own the IP of Battle Royale, which they don't, and they completely own the IP of all of the things in that game, which they don't, it is very difficult, I think, to prove and actually get something tangible from this court case. Because, again, inspiration could have come from other places. Like I said, the difference between the Mobile Legends and the League of Legends case is that there was a lot of direct inspiration from a created IP. League of Legends is a completely fictional universe where everything is created, everything is thought up. And that was what Mobile Legends took, and it was easy to prove that. Less easy to prove that on this case. So for those of you that play Rules of Survival, I think it's unlikely that you will see Rules of Survival go anywhere anytime soon. So for those of you that like playing Rules of Survival, especially from North America, which is where this case seems to be based, you guys are probably safe playing Rules of Survival, because I think it'll be difficult to actually prove this like you could prove the Mobile Legends and League of Legends case. I love both games. I really love both games, and I just wanted to go into a bit of analytical detail about this case if any of you were worried. So I hope you can look through it yourself and enjoy it, and please tell me what you think in the comments, because I want to hear your guys' opinions as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I just did this because a lot of people have been talking about it, and I thought, given that I create content for both games, I could weigh in with my own opinions, and I feel like I'm fairly balanced on this kind of thing. Thank you so much for watching. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that alert box if you haven't already, because YouTube is really good at sending out notifications to my subscribers. Thank you very much, guys. See you soon.